What's going on, y'all? We're back. The Tree Trunk Show is live. It's July 19th, 2022, and we have a very special guest joining us today from the Twitter Spaces, from the world of art, one of the greatest of all time. We're here with Blue, and of course with Serena, the Go. How's it going, y'all?
Going pretty well. Well, thank you. Yeah, I was super excited for us to have Blue on, especially because we also just met in or IRL for the first time at NFT NYC, and that was so exciting because we've been on so many Twitter Spaces together. But how are you doing today, Blue?
I'm doing amazing. And I'm just happy for the future of Web3. I'm just really excited because there are dips and holes, and it's like, watch out for this and that. But, we're like the the survivors of the winter.
It's very true. I mean, while I feel like the market is also like just correcting itself, I think we're kind of weeding out the people who are in it for the hype and for that like kind of quick buck. And now whoever's left in the space, we're the real troopers. So I'm excited to see that number grow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I want our audience to learn more about you as well. Do you mind doing a quick intro on yourself?
Yeah, I've been in the space for a little bit, like since 2020. And so I've just been sitting back watching and learning. And I am also an artist, a digital artist, photographer, filmmaker. And I just have a passion to onboard successful Web2 platforms into this space. And so, yeah, I'm really excited to, see what the future brings.
Absolutely. And how did you get into Web3? If you don't mind me asking.
I actually had a deal with HBO for a TV show. And after negotiating and sitting down at the table with the offer of like your creation and seeing that you don't really get much of it back, and all these people are taking from it, it was mind shifting. I heard a commercial or somebody told me about, yeah, I'm going to look into this NFT thing. It's supposed to be like freedom. And so I was like, okay, well, let me check this thing out. Jumped into a Twitter space. My Twitter hadn't been active since I opened it. So I'm like, I have to get on Twitter. Are y'all sure? So I got on Twitter, and that was it. Like, I was up for, like, when I first got in, I was up for like, I don't know, a month, like in just Twitter spaces, because it's like, oh, jump here. Oh, it's 4:00 a.m. because we're talking to these people over here in the world. So it was just like overload. And then every friend I could tell, my family, they're like, yeah, she keeps talking to us about this thing called NFTs. So yeah, that's how I got in. I saw I was tired of kind of giving over ownership of the things that I create.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, I know. Were you on Clubhouse? Because I know, I mean, I know was on Clubhouse, but we had a lot of those people transition, and we were actually just talking about that on a Twitter space the other day about how Twitter spaces have been kind of more on the slow side in terms of the Twitter algorithms that have changed. But one thing that I think I had mentioned was with Clubhouse, the way that they kind of introduced the app to their industry or their market was really by an invite list. So people could invite, friends of theirs, and that kind of had a built-in community already. But Twitter is so large that when people started switching over, it kind of went from that close-knit community to, I mean, there are so many people on Twitter. So it just opened the floodgates, maybe too quickly. I don't know, but it definitely had a different feel and vibe than Clubhouse did.
I also had that month of 24-hour cycles. I'm a little bit glad it's over, but I also miss it. It was exciting.
Yeah, definitely.
It's nice to see the daytime again, though.
That's true. I felt like when I when I first like got into the space, I would, anytime I couldn't sleep, I would just go on Twitter and there would always be a Twitter space. It doesn't matter what time, like Web3 time zone, all the time. It's like 10 p.m. all the time.
Yes, all the time. So yeah, it was really great being able to meet and hear stories from people all over the world. And I don't think I'm a fan of the word chill. Like, and coming into this space, I literally ask people like, what is your return on investment when you go to these spaces that are just chill, 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 chill? And it's like people are really investing into your story, and that's really how like you're building community. I'm like, kind of think of it like Legos. You have to build a structure. You can't just come in and say like, I have a project. You need a community. You need to be able to network and things like that. And so you hear that and people come in and they're like, yeah, I've been in for a week, so I'm community building and I have a project. And it's like, well, okay.
It's very true. We actually, on one of our earlier spaces, we had somebody come in, and Will, you navigated this so beautifully, but they came in and they were just like, hi, I'm here to tell you about my project. And we were mid conversation. Like, yeah, we were on a roll with our space, and then they just came in, and I mean, of course, the more the merrier in the spaces, but I think, Will, you were like, well, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself instead of just coming in with the project. So I do agree with you there, Blue, and it is nice to hear more about the story and the background of the person that's speaking, as opposed to just here's the project, and that's not as good of a way to build a community, if a way at all, but it is a way to get the word out, but the word on what? I'm not so sure. Have you found on the Twitter spaces, though, that it's easy to, I guess, like build connections and relationships with people through that?
I think when you find the valuable Twitter spaces, you can do so. I think like I told people like I'm literally about to start creating videos on how to enter a Twitter space. Like first come in, listen, fill the room. And then remember, like in real life, you don't run up to strangers and say, hi, buy this. Like literally in the middle, like running up in someone's conversation. And so like understanding that, I really find value in conversations where we're talking about how we can further the community, how we can help spread education, because there's a lot of different narratives out there. Like if you go up to someone who's not in, and that's another thing, like them and us, we have to stop that as well. Like you're Web 2, I'm Web 3. People in real life are like, what are you talking about? And so like, yeah, I really find value in the spaces where it's really the artists, the people who are on the ground, talking, even photographers and things like that. They're talking like, well, maybe we should try this platform out, or maybe we should try this platform out. I just really like those type of spaces. I think there are a lot of toxic spaces. So I think like for newbies coming in to have like hey, this is a list of how to carefully, safely enter the space. Because this is like going on an airplane and jumping, skydiving, and you don't have a parachute.
Very true.
Yeah.
I feel like the smaller spaces are where I would suggest people start, because those massive spaces, if the line between it staying civil and getting toxic is like the difference. Yeah, it's any second it could be an all-out fight about the randomest topic. So I completely agree. I think that'll be such great, valuable content for people.
Yeah.
It's also easier to get into those spaces because when you join, you can actually come in and say, hey, I don't know a lot about this, but could you all tell me more? And it's a lot better received than trying to be a speaker in a big space where people don't know who you are, and you likely will not be on as a speaker.
Yeah, it's I think there's really valuable resources out there. And then like this space also teaches people you don't judge on appearance or even numbers. Like there are people that have like 500 followers. Like you have no idea who they are. They're a VP for somebody. There's Disney execs that have like 50 followers, but they're in the space. People from Time, you have no idea who you're speaking to. So like this space gives you opportunity to network, but however, network genuinely to everyone and treat everyone equally, because you have no idea who you're speaking to.
That's very true. I think also in this space, because it is still so nascent, we have kind of all been learning but sprinting together. But that's kind of also what's created more of a gap between people who understand the space and people who don't. But in my conversations in the past couple of weeks, I've noticed that more and more people are, rather than like charging on ahead, have been turning around and kind of being like, okay, but who's there? Who's following us? Who's there to bridge the gap? And I like that there's a lot more now, kind of like people being cognizant of that fact that there is a gap and that we should be bridging it. And of course, not everyone knows how to bridge it, but I love that there are efforts that are going towards that.
No question. I heard recently, I don't know how recently I heard it. It was a little while ago now, so recent might have been the wrong choice of word. But there's this thing called I think it's the Gini coefficient, and it studies wealth inequality in the world. I was in a space the other day, Dame Dash called it the oxygen world. So I'm going to start calling the real world oxygen realm now. But apparently it studies wealth inequality, and they use the same coefficient to study crypto and blockchain. And apparently right now it's in fact more unequal than the traditional world, which is like blew my mind, because I thought this has all the opportunity in the world. We can finally level the playing field, and yet it's even more problematic right now, which is like, oh, perfect.
I have a theory on that though.
Are you willing to share it?
Sure. I honestly think that if you take the example of Luna, like basically it was like David going to Goliath, the US Treasury, and saying like, we're challenging you and we're not giving you an opportunity to enter the space. And so like if you back a digital asset by $1, there's going to be a problem, because they're like, trade this digital asset for and burn this dollar. And so then now the US dollar is equivalent to the euro, like it's continually to fall. And the US has white papers out to create digital currency. They're getting counseling from Bermuda, who has the sand dollar, which is the most successful digital coin out of all the countries in the world. And so I think until they have been able to establish themselves in this space, we're going to continue to see some of these unbreakable algorithms that can't be broken. Like if a person created it can be hacked regardless of what the situation is. So I just think when that happens, then it'll be a little bit more stable. But that's just my theory on that.
So you're pro healthy regulation is what it sounds like.
No. Oh no. I honestly feel like
I enjoyed that a lot.
In the smart contract, we have the technologies. Like, there's no need for all these things. The different people that's been rugged. Some of it is because we didn't do due diligence and we just went off feelings. But honestly, like if you, for instance, TreeTrunk has been able to solve a lot of issues, and using that contract and technology to be able to pay out what you're promising to your community instantly, it solves a lot of those problems. You won't have like, it's just simple. Well, it's not, because not everybody knows not to take a picture of your debit card or your credit card and post it on social media and say, they robbed me. It's called Get a Heart Wallet. I mean, it's just different things that people don't understand. And so they're like, oh, this is a terrible space. Oh, I've been burned and all these things. No, it's like, if I want to play basketball, I have to actually learn the steps. I have to be coached. I have to learn the playbook. And so I can't just go out there and play with LeBron. I'll get ran over and hurt really bad. So
I
And
love
so
that analogy.
these are the things like, so I just think big entities are threatened because they do see the ability of people being able to be free, and have their own ownership and really create ecosystems. Like you really can change the world with this technology.
Very true. I think also something that you touched on, I wanted to go back to in terms of people buying based on their feelings. Blue, I know we were just talking about this just a little earlier today. It's so funny that so many people in the space, or who are new to the space, rather than doing their own research, they're kind of like, okay, well, this person told me to buy this. And then when it goes sour, they're like, well, this person told me. But you decided to put your money into something without doing your own research. And I mean, that's so big in the industry, and yet people are not putting in any of the steps to do that. Like very similar to what you were saying with putting your credit card out there. I mean, these are monetary decisions. So it's a little crazy that people aren't at least looking up what they're putting their money into.
It's scary.
It really is. I couldn't imagine doing that.
That's how I started my crypto journey. When I first got into crypto, like 2016, I was like, "Oh, this sounds awesome!" Like, "Oh, they're doing this! Like, oh, let me just try all of them." And then there was a crypto winter, same thing, and I was like, "Oh," but I got to see just by like waiting it through which ones delivered on their promises and which ones it was like, "Oh, I probably should have researched that more." But their
It
website
sounds
didn't
like you
look
learned
perfect.
like I feel like doing that though could teach you a lot as well. Just in terms of, I mean, you were doing it on your own volition, um, but just trying to like experiment in the space. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
100%. As long as it's money you can afford to lose, in that way, it's like somewhat similar to
Yes.
gambling. It's just gambling that has like amazing technology and art on top of it. But yeah, I think there, at least right now, I think there is a little bit of failure necessary in the space to learn. Because if you don't get if you don't get rugged or you don't get like scammed, then you're prone to have it happen down the line. I'd rather see someone lose like $5 than lose their whole portfolio. But
Mm-hmm.
Very true.
the
It
education,
instills just a certain amount of fear that's needed.
yeah, no question. If you're signing a document that gives someone access to your bank account, basically, like, who are you signing that with? And people are like, "Oh, they're anonymous. That's the spirit of blockchain." And it's like, no. It's kind of a scam.
Very true. It's a shame to me. I mean, I can't say that this is across the board, but it's a shame that a lot of the media out there, kind of the way that people have been intaking that information, has been more on the scared side as opposed to, okay, well, maybe I should research what things are in the space before buying into it, as opposed to just being like, the whole space is going down. I need to cash out everything and just get out of here. But if you actually pay attention to what the projects are, a lot of the info is there.
Yeah, it's really on who brings you into the space, what hole you jump down. And so there's different access points that you enter, and not everyone gives you parachutes. And so, you fall and you fall hard. Some people have lost their homes over these things. Um, and it's scary. It's scary. It's scary because it's like you don't open an LLC like this. You you don't pick your university like this. Like it's there's some things I just think with education, like there should be like some type of safe places that people can go to. These are the resources. Like I want to come out with a blue list, and the blue list will tell you these are the safe spaces. These are like the 1, 2, 3 intro points of like what this technology means, what blockchain means. Do you know what that is? Like, those kind of things. Like you need those things, before you're jumping in spaces and having conversations. And people are like, "Oh yeah, give me your keys, your phrase keys." People are doing that, like with companies, and they're giving them phrase keys. Even like the people who use credit cards and debit cards to swipe and get NFTs on the blockchain, but you're paying with a debit card. They're just holding it there for you, and then they're going to turn over that information to you.
It's a lot. It's a lot. There's so many gaps in as far as the information, and I'm excited to see with things like the blue list coming out, like having these aggregated sources where people are like, okay, like this is, at least if you read through this, the probability will be less. There's still risk, like you're still susceptible, but at least you'll have that like a sixth sense to be like, oh, these people are fully anonymous founders, and I can't find anything that they've ever done anywhere. Okay, maybe I don't do that one.
That's true. I mean, also,
go ahead.
if you look at how people, or how some people have come into the space, I mean, I would almost equate it to when you win the lottery. Sometimes when people win the lottery, they're like the fastest to bankrupt themselves, because it's not money that they've slowly earned over time. But you know, the early adopters are really the ones that made out super, super well thus far. And again, we're still super nascent, but you know, that kind of money has been in a way like play money. So you may not think through a lot of those decisions because you're like, oh, I have 300 ETH in my wallet. So what's 1 here and 5 there and 4 here? And those decisions weren't fully made, but that's likely what we're seeing with these headlines, or at least that's my opinion, where people weren't, you know, thinking that through. And that's where you see those headlines that people lost so much money. I think that could be a pretty solid contributor to that.
Absolutely.
How are things going with the blue list? Are we close to seeing that? Is it under development?
It is under development. There's several times. So the thing about it is, like, when you're your own individual creator, but you help other projects, you kind of table your things. And so like you get so engulfed in pushing this out, then everything that like that's in your head it's like tabled. And so yeah, I'm just like pushing, and I'm going to use this month to just push out this information, regardless of the projects that I'm attached to. And so I've had so many people say, like, I see you're helping these individuals, but I never see stuff coming from you. So now it's time for me to like put some things out just from the will list, from the time that you've been in crypto space to right now. That's worth millions of dollars. Just because like I can learn from your bumps and bruises to know like not to do this, not to do that, and be careful of these tokens that are coming out and what you're jumping onto and what platform is stable. Like even ETH, like it's the most stable, and people feel like if you're on ETH, then you know, like you're established and all of these things. But like to really think about the structure of how your community is onboarded, are they going to pay the $250 or heaven forbid $3,000 additional to whatever the cost of your piece is? And so like onboarding people like that, it shows like that's not going to be the way. And so like with Poly, I think TreeTrunk really hit it out of the park, because at first I was like, Poly though, and then it's like, well, no, wait a minute. Gas fees, how are we going to really figure that out? And if you really want to convert the Poly, you can wrap your Poly to ETH. And so like, it's just different ways on how to onboard your community, because honestly, if you have a community where you have NFTs that are affordable for the community entry point, and then do something like Moonbirds, where they had their capital, or that they were releasing everything at 2.5. They knew what their floor was going to be, and they came out, they said, this is just for us to be able to pay for the things that we're trying to bring on. And so like being able to have investor entry points and then also community entry points, and then being able to like help those under you and just continue to have that, you know, generating, because people drop the ball with the secondary value of your project. And it's like, okay, we sold out. Okay, what's next? Like, I'm still sitting here and this thing is going negative, 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 negative. Where's the value coming from? So I think that has a lot to do with it.
Very true.
No question. Go ahead,
I
Serena.
also, you made me think of, I attended Consensus 2022, and Joe Lubin was speaking there. So we all went to see him. But one thing that he said, I forgot what the question was exactly. Oh, you know what? I think it was what is the strength or like the biggest strength and the biggest weakness within Ethereum? And I loved his answer because he said it's community, and it's community on both ends. Did I freeze in real life?
You did, but we heard what you said.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Like I was like, it'll unfreeze. Just keep acting.
Yeah, exactly. It made it through.
Awesome. But yeah, that was one thing that he said. And it's so true because it's not just building the community, but it's what is the community saying and perpetuating in the space. And that is equally as important as having a community in itself, because the community could lead to both good and bad. So it's more so just kind of watching and steering the community. But I mean, I think just in terms of what the innovation has been with Ethereum, I think a lot of it has been just pioneering the space and really focusing on the innovation that could be, and focusing on the future of crypto as a whole, and Web3 as a whole. But I know you mentioned Polygon, and in the media, there's so much FUD. It's just all FUD. But I think there really is something to creating those implementations that allow for lower gas fees and allow for less barriers to entry for different communities to also join. Not everyone has 100 ETH to put in wherever they very well want to. But I think just creating less of a barrier to entry or breaking those walls down is really the future of the space as well. And I know that Disney just partnered with Polygon, and one of the reasons that they said was because of the innovation that Polygon allows. And that was one of the reasons why we went with Polygon as our L2 as well. Yeah. I think just focusing on the space and trying to bring those walls down. I love anything that's doing that.
I mean, I even feel, it's not off topic, but I think understanding Poly, and yes, the issue with Poly is the spam, I guess, far as like how people can drop things to your wallet and you're getting like 1,000, free airdrops or whatever from this random person. I think there's ways to navigate around that. And there's so many wallets that you can have to like filter those things out. I think ETH was kind of filtering out the nonsense, but then it like priced people out and blocked out communities. And so then it's like, if you're community building, but you're blocking out the community, how are you building? And so then you have what's called the winter. But is it really the winter? Because if we go to a school and we teach all the kids there and they all get MetaMask and then they all get that NFT, is it really a winter? It's just, you have to onboard because the party is like not enough people. Just make your party bigger. And it's really not a winner. And it's just like, there's photographers out there having conversations about like, I wish we could do like royalty splits and things like that. And it's like, well, that technology is out there. There's a whole platform. It's called TreeTrunk. So it's just like,
it's all on chain.
Yeah, it's like, and everybody's like, well, jump into Tezos and jump into this, jump into that, jump into that. And it's like, well, I still don't see the issues being solved, like far as your smart contracts and things like that. And people just like kind of like fly over that. And it's like, that's the biggest issue that we're running into. So, I mean, I really think like you can convert cities, even like going to LA and all the people who sell tacos, and get them to operate off of crypto and take Poly. Like you're not paying taxes if you don't cash out. If you do cash out, prepare for the taxes that you will accrue. You know, you can really change people's lives with this. So
No question. That actually is the exact reason I got into crypto in the first place. Was Stellar Lumen was an alternative to Western Union, and I was trying to educate people to the fact that, like, let's say you were an immigrant in a different country, you need to send money home. Western Union is killing people on fees, but Stellar Lumen was free and it was instant, and it was like that just changed my whole perspective. Now, obviously, basically any crypto can do that. This was like 2016, so the alternatives weren't there, but I completely agree. It's like beyond just art, and there's so many use cases in so many industries. I think it's Walmart that uses blockchain technology for their the food, basically the food pipeline. That's not the word I want to use. The chain, like the food supply chain.
Yeah, the distribution.
Things of that nature, like, it's unbelievable. And then we'll start being able to track it, show who the bad actors are. Serena and I were talking about how there's a DAO that just published it's a ledger of provable good deeds that you've done for society, and it's a blockchain ledger. So anyone who does like acts of good can submit to this blockchain and basically have a public record of like, okay, this person's an activist, or like, okay, this person needs to do more. So it's amazing. Have you seen anything that you're like loving right now as far as education in the space?
I see like there's some from the educators that are out there, they're independent. And so unless you're in their circles, you're not really receiving that information. So I feel like content creation needs to happen where there's short videos of animation, and there are some like that on YouTube, but it's dry and it's not like edible, basically. Like I was explaining to a group that is a rap group, and I was telling them, think of it like how we used to have CDs and you had those records and stuff like that. I was like, remember when we crossed over to digital music, and everybody was like, what is this digital music thing? And I'm like, this is exactly what crypto space is. And they're like,
I love
okay,
that analogy.
Yeah. And I'm like, all right, now go back to when you used to sell that music out of your trunks. You had complete ownership. You didn't have a distribution center. You didn't have Sony pushing it out, taking 75% of what you're pushing out. I was like, you're going back to this technology. He was like, I understand. Okay, let's talk to her, because it's just like figuring out ways to make it edible for every single different group. You can't just have one standard and come out and talk about the 1155 versus this smart contract. People are going to be sitting there like, what are you?
I thought it was 12 p.m.
Yes. Yes. They're like, what are you talking about? What do you mean decentralization? What does that mean? Like, it's just ways to creatively come up with helping people to understand it, especially music artists. They're about to, like, there's so many companies trying to get the music artists to sign contracts to keep them locked down. And it's like, who can you say before they get invested and locked down into this? Because it's like they're threatened and they're like, what do we do? And I think for projects, and especially artists always say, like, I just want to be an artist and I don't want to have to deal with all the things that come with pushing and making my project successful. And so, like, I had to realize that there's two different groups. Like, there's a group who wants to have complete ownership and push their project and use this technology. And then there's people who want like an easy push of like, okay, I just want to be an artist, make this work. And so it's showing those people, because at first I was against that. And like finding platforms like TreeTrunk, I'm more like, yeah, this is the way, because now they can handle this part of your project for you. And hopefully you can understand like bringing on other people, but you don't have to give your project away. Like you could just pay them through your TreeTrunk. Like there's so many different ways to just help artists like comprehend these kind of things. Like I'm literally at tables with people and I'm like, you have to come to crypto. I'm like, Web3 is the way. And they're all like, well, what do we do about this? And what do we do about this? And I have a contract. And I'm just like, you can really like grow a community. You already have an audience. So you have to push an audience to Twitter. You have to push an audience to YouTube. Why not have your own website and your own community? Use the smart contract from TreeTrunk, embed it into your website, and push your community there. I feel the same way about Discord. Like, take the 9 to 5 mom and dad that have kids and like a whole life, and then they are already trying to process what Web3 is and this blockchain. What do you mean, ETH or Poly? I don't know which one they're talking about. So like they're already in that like space, and plus their real life. And then I have to go to this wall of Discord of don't click this, read this wall, click this, heart this, join this channel. Have this communication on your website where you can talk to your community. Like at 5 p.m. on Tuesdays, we'll all meet and talk ABC, and like this is how we commune. But it's just finding and meeting those communities like where they're at. And I think that's a lot of the walls, just talking to friends in the space who's successful. They're like, we're trying to figure out what the next move is. I'm like, add value to your project, have IRLs, and have those connected to your project, and then have education on how it comes in. So
very true. I mean, I feel like so many of the things that you were saying are just so a part of the TreeTrunk ethos. But I remember like even in, I mean, John has said in so many Twitter spaces, you know, the first thing was let's not lock artists down to a platform. Why are we doing that? And you know, every platform has just been competing with each other, but to the point where they're not even trying to reach the community. And it's like, all right, if we're all competing to get to the top, somebody's going to get to the top, but they're going to have nobody underneath them. So, you know, that was really one of the first things that we wanted to do, because giving artists the freedom to put their artwork wherever they want, on their portfolio website or on a gallery website, wherever they can get a sale and earn royalties on their own artwork that's being shown in places, is such a big portion of that. And we also have Arabella Proffer. She's one of the OG artists on TreeTrunk, and her story, I almost wish we had her on, but her story, when she first got into NFTs, she actually had her wallet hacked. And she was like, I want to prevent anyone else from having this happen to them. And so she was like, I don't know anything about the space, but I'm just going to put what little I know into a document. And I think she was selling them for like $1, and people were buying them. And it was really great because, you know, she just understood there was a need in the community to understand, even at like the more basic level, because I think even when people are creating educational content, there's an assumed starting point that's given to that. And it's not necessarily the starting point that most people are at. It may even be too advanced. So, you know, I saw her doing that, and I was like, that is so great. And she has done a lot of work to educate her community and anyone that really comes to her and reaches out to do that. But yeah, I think that really was huge. But then in terms of TreeTrunk, I had something else to say about it, and I was hoping it came to me when I got to that point, but it did not.
I know that feeling.
Yeah. But I remembered. In terms of having, you know, the artists on the space, and I know for anyone that's heard me say this before, which I'm sure you have if you've been in even a single Twitter space, but we always talk about how artists have to do so many things in the space and making it easier for them. And I think one of the things that TreeTrunk tried to do to ameliorate that is really to create a process for artists to onboard into the space that is more easy, that allows them to create that business strategy one time before they mint their NFT. So that thought process is there. We didn't take out the business strategy aspect of it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the business strategy is changing every single day and something that they have to keep up with, and on top of already building their community and their audience and trying to get the word out, when really artists want to create art. So I love that you brought that up, Blue. And I also wanted to ask, I know I know you're a photographer as well. Do you have any photography NFTs up?
I have one hidden photography NFT up. And so like if you're able to find it, because basically in this space you find different characters and individuals. And so like people will say that they're ready to, like when I first started, people will say like they're ready to buy an NFT. And so you kind of wait. So it's like, okay, I'll take this down so no one else can get it because, you know, you're promising to purchase it. And then if someone doesn't fulfill that promise, then like you've taken it down. So then now you have to put it back up. And people watch like the transitions on your blockchain because they can follow that. It's like, well, it was listed, then it was taken down, then it was listed. Okay, what's going on here? So yeah, I do have a photograph. I'm about to release a collection. I'm kind of waiting because I want to release it on TreeTrunk. So
Oh, it's awesome.
yeah, so like I've been going back and forth. I have a lot of stuff to drop, from animations to photography to art, you know. So I'm excited about that. I was just like treading in the water to kind of just really see where everything was unfolding. And I kept seeing this Eve thing and I kept going back and forth about that. And I just don't really see how I can build the community that I'm looking to build with that type of structure at the moment. I know they're like saying that they're going to Eve 0.20. They've been saying that like since I came into the space. I mean,
Been saying it for years.
yeah, like we're supposed to see something in August, but like stop putting dates on it and just work on it and test it and then figure it out. But I really think like poly is the play because even like the big giants that are on ETH, they're going to see you need a community to keep your project going. And so I think that's why you see a lot of these, oh, it's winter, it's winter. I really don't think it is. I just think it's about the entry points on how people enter the space. But yes, I do have photography.
Awesome. And I know we were talking about education and just, you know, transparently, I think with TreeTrunk, we haven't put out so many like infographics or videos. We do have some instructional videos that are out, and we do, you know, urge our community to go check those out before they mint or before they purchase an NFT. But they're also there as a resource if somebody doesn't know what to do, in addition to just being able to give feedback on the website and reach out to one of our exec team members. But even in terms of educating the space, people who, once they learn about TreeTrunk, because this is such a different model in the digital art industry, I think there is a bit more onboarding that we do have to do. And that being said, even with the onboarding that we have done, I mean, we have 46 creator accounts on the platform. We had our 19 headlining artists, 523 prints created. You know, I know Logic even did a space and he sold out his first generation on one Twitter space.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really educating the community. And that's really what's going to be the next steps with TreeTrunk, because anyone that learns about what TreeTrunk is and what it does is so excited about it. But the people that don't know, don't know. And I mean, I can't blame them for not knowing, especially if we haven't put out an infographic. So there is that's coming. But I think just in terms of educating the space, you're really, I'm resonating a lot with what you're saying with that.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I mean, just even if we converted our family and friends, they're watching us to see, like, they see us going up and down, like, they're like, well, what's wrong with you? It's like I'm trying to figure out the space, but if I can make a cake and it tastes really, really good, and then I give it to like my neighbor and they're like, this is really, really good. And they call like 10 other people and say, you have to come get this cake. It's the same type of situation on like how you educate. And I think the problem is there's spaces where they're like, well, we're better and this and that, like the negative versus just providing the information instead of saying like, well, you know, it's wrong for you to be over there. It's wrong for you to be over there. And just say like, I have an opportunity for you to understand this information. And there is a platform called TreeTrunk that can solve a lot of the issues that you see in this space. I think I would be more receptive to hearing it like that versus like, why are you on ETH, or why are you a part of this project and this and that? It's just like, I don't want to say meaningless, but the point of us holding these Twitter spaces and just complaining or just, voicing frustrations, I don't really see like, because a newbie would come into the space and just say, well, what?
Leave.
Oh, yes, and
like
leave.
You just turn someone away, and we're trying to get mass adoption. Like,
yeah.
And it's like, how do you mass adopt like that? And
it also goes with the adding value, because I've noticed that a lot of I don't want to call anyone out, but I've noticed that some of the bigger Twitter spaces have kind of moved from value adding towards just like hanging out all together. And I'm like, okay, but I don't really want to listen to everyone hanging out. Is there value being provided? Did I miss it? Did I miss that segment?
It's gotten to that. And
it
it
really has. It's either chill or I'm in a space with my friends and we're talking and we're not going to let you up, or we'll bring you up and make you feel uncomfortable because it's us and you. Or it's just a space where it's just, what is happening here? Yeah.
Very true. I mean, even with shilling, I feel like, yes, it has a bad connotation, but I think, and Will has actually done this really well, I think there's education involved in also learning how to shill,
Yes.
which is more so marketing. And I think, and I guess, Will, you could speak more to this, but I think you've done a great job in terms of educating people with how to shill their projects and not just talking at people. I froze again. Go ahead, Will.
No, yeah, that's I'm an exact same. I think the name that we chosen for the act it automatically makes it negative, but it's like, the way that I look at it is, it's like a log line in TV and film. You gotta be, you have to be able to sell the idea of what you're doing really quickly to someone. It's a good skill.
Yes.
So I try to help people learn how to do it, but it's definitely like the approach. The way you put it earlier, Blue, is so perfect. Like, you wouldn't run up to a group of people and be like, buy this right now. It's like, no. But if you went up to them and they were like, oh, what is that? You just walked up, your shirt is amazing. You're like, oh, actually, I made this. Just like little things, pin tweets, those strange devices that we don't necessarily know have large impact.
Yeah.
You don't even have to talk to shill most of the time. Just like have your art as your profile picture. People will be like, hey, Blue down there in the audience, that is the most amazing photo I've ever seen. It's like,
no, really.
Yeah.
But
oh, go ahead, Blue.
People ask me to buy my profile all the time. They're like, wait, that's water in the shape of a horse. Wait a minute. Like, what? Like, and I'm like, yeah, no, that's not for sale. That's just me. And so like, I think also in the shilling of spaces, teaching them not have a sad story, but not take your story and kind of just be like, woe is me. Like, have a story about, these are the negative things that I'm overcoming, and I'm trying to use this space to, other than just come in and saying like,
right, yep.
And people get upset because they're just like, well, this is just handouts. And it's just like, it's all about how you approach this space. Like you said, you don't have to ask people to follow you. If you're naturally talking and you connect, they will automatically follow you. And it, like, instead of just jumping into, hey, can you follow me? Can you follow me? Can you follow me? It's just like, I don't know you. Like, and at first I used to just follow anybody. And then I've been more selective because like I can follow somebody that's been rugging people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there was an artist who used to come to spaces, and I would be a part of the spaces where we hold for like 8 hours, and people come to the space and, they talk about their project, and we kind of try to just help them and say like, fix your Twitter like this. You come in, make sure you have an elevator pitch and like you're able to like spit this out instantly, and then just also understanding the things that you're saying, like what you can say legally what you cannot say. You cannot tell people you can have like passive income and things like that. You have to have other legal ways to say those things. So it's just I don't know, like
No, it's very true. I also, Blue, I don't know what you're up to later, but I know that, and I'll let Will talk about it, but there's a Twitter space later today that's going to be awesome on Will's Treehouse.
The synchronicity of the spaces today is wild. We're going to be talking with an education-based project. They're trying to be the first HBCU on the blockchain. I don't know how quite there, but I'm excited. The goal that they have is a righteous one, and I met them in a space. You know, someone else. The way that I knew they had merit was that someone else was like, "You got to learn about these people." And that's another great show for anyone watching right now. Show other people. That is an amazing way. It'll help you show that you're a good person, and it'll help your friend, lover, whoever you're shilling.
yes. Because I want to hear about it more if it's coming from someone else other than just me talking about, oh, this is what I have. Oh, please. Oh, please. You know, like if it's a natural conversation and we're intellects or thought leaders and we're just talking about, you know, the space and we understand the terminology, we can talk all day. But, you know, just coming in and just talking about what you've done. I think when you're in natural conversations, then it just naturally opens up and you're like, oh yeah, by the way, I have A, B, and C, and this is what I'm working on. And I like what you're working on as well. You know, and then collaboration conversations come in and things like that. I think that's how we build. Like if you build kind of like transformers, because if you look at a lab's place, you know, that's what they did. They've actually acquired the successful brands and they said, oh, let's all attach together because we have to figure out a way to keep this running and getting this to generate. And I think that's like where people really drop the ball. But I can't wait to come. Definitely, I'm going to come to this space.
4:20 p.m. Pacific, 7:20 Eastern. It should be a blast. And we have like a musician from Korn coming on Thursday. We got some quiet. Yeah, this week's guests have been wild. We had an amazing conversation yesterday. It's been really. We gotta have you as a guest whenever you're free.
Yeah, sure.
Every day.
And I think we are almost out of time. But just before we go, I wanted to let everyone know, everyone watching, that the artist link is right below the video. So if you know an artist or are an artist and want to be put on the approved for minting list on TreeTrunk, please click that link and fill it out so we can get you on there. Awesome. And also, you know, check out bleu.eth, blue all day on Twitter. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Awesome. And subscribe to the Twitter channel. All right, everyone. Yeah. Thank you so much, Blue, for being on. It was really, really great to have you on as a guest. And Will, as always, thank you for being your amazing self.
This was amazing, y'all. This was amazing. This was like the best way to start a day.
Yes, yes. And make sure you're following these two individuals.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Peace, y'all.
Bye.